The MCU is expanding with both the multiverse and the Disney's acquisition of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. It's getting massive. Now, we aren't in the thick of things yet, and this is prime time to speculate about what's to come, and that's what we're going to do today. Welcome everybody to the Chaos Multiverse. Jimmy or Chaos here. Today, I want to give my picks for 15 characters, 15 Avengers, if you will, that we haven't seen in the MCU, that I would love to get brought into the mix, whether it be Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6, next Avengers movie, whatever it may be. So you let me know which of these you'd like to see join the Avengers. If it's going to be in a regular Avengers, it may not. It may be a West Coast, maybe a new Avengers, maybe a young Avengers. We don't know, but it's going to be fun and exciting. So you give me your best pick of characters you'd like to see brought into the MCU. As always, do me a favor, turn on those notifications, drop that like, and at number 15, She-Hulk. Now this is a character we know is coming, but it's unclear how big of a role she's going to play in the grand scheme of things. In the comics, Jennifer Walters is Bruce Banner's cousin, and after she's in a major accident, Bruce gives her a blood transfusion, which ends up giving her a minor version of the Hulk mutation. Now, we know a She-Hulk show is coming. It's already been announced, and we know that it's not going to be too far down the road. In the comics, She-Hulk has fought alongside the Avengers many times, but with the MCU Avengers being in a weird spot right now, it's unclear. Are they going to be following the comics or not? I personally would love to see She-Hulk in a future Avenger movie. At number 14, Daredevil. Now, we technically already have Daredevil in the MCU, but he's never gotten to fight alongside the Avengers. The Netflix Daredevil show is excellent. For those that don't know, it actually took place in the MCU, although Marvel and Disney never made that very explicit because they wanted the show to be targeted to an older demographic due to all the violence. Matt Murdock was played by Charlie Cox in the show, and while it's been off air for a few years, I would love to see it come back in a big way in the future of the MCU. And if we're right on our guessing, Mr. Matt Murdock may be in Spider-Man No Way Home. At number 13, The Punisher. This is another one that's already part of the MCU, but I would love to get it on the big screen. It's a fan favorite character of mine, and John Bernthal's Punisher is just awesome. Now, the MCU expanded and new characters are taking the spotlight, so I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Netflix Marvel character started getting another chance to shine as well. I would love to see Frank Castle come to the big screen. He might have been toned down a bit in order to get that PG-13 rating, but that's okay. Or he could be like Deadpool, get his own rated R solo movie. I think it would work. Next up, we have Valkyrie. Now, I know, Valkyrie was introduced in Thor Ragnarok, and she appeared again during the final battle of the Avengers Endgame, but it's currently unclear if she's going to remain in the MCU. At the end of Endgame, Thor named her the new ruler of Asgard, but now that Thor is going off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, it's unknown if Asgard is going to play much of a role at all in Thor's future. Personally, I really hope Valkyrie remains a major player in Thor's story, and hopefully she'll get to join the Avengers. She's one of the best fighters in the MCU right now, thanks to her history with Asgard, and I would love to see her get a proper chance to shine in battle with the Avengers. Yes, she was part of the final battle against Thanos, but she didn't get a lot of screen time. Next up, we have Eddie Brock himself. It's a bit of a stretch, but maybe there's a small chance we get Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock in the MCU, maybe with the Avengers. Now, before you yell at me, I feel I should remind you, Venom has been a hero many times in the comics, and he was even a member of the Secret Avengers. Both Marvel and Sony have been teasing a possible crossover between the Venom movie universe and the MCU in the future, and if that happens, hey, they could find a way to bring the character into the next Avengers movie. Could you imagine the hype train that would start chugging if Venom started showing up in the MCU and then Deadpool's in the MCU? I think it's only a matter of time before it happens, personally, especially with the multiverse being established. I don't think it's that far-fetched anymore. At number 10, Ghost Rider. There's actually some rumors floating around that Ghost Rider is getting a Disney Plus show. If that happens, you can bet money on him showing up in a future Avengers project. Not a long time ago, Marvel and Disney registered a new LLC with the name that alluded to the Ghost Rider storyline, and we know for a fact that the higher-ups at Marvel want to bring him into the mix. Will he be played by Nicolas Cage again? Probably not. Will he be awesome to have on the big screen? 1,000%. At number 9, Iron Fist. I know. The Netflix show didn't go over well at all, and people forgot about him, but does that mean he needs to stay out of the MCU? I don't think so. The first season was terrible due to the mediocre writing and the crappy action scenes. While the second season was an improvement, it still wasn't very good. By that point, people tuned it out. Iron Fist only got 2 seasons, but the character is awesome. There's so much potential with this character, especially with the multiverse coming into play. So what do you guys think? Does Iron Fist deserve a second chance? Maybe they bring him in somehow with Shang-Chi? I don't know. At number 8, Miles Morales. I think it's only a matter of time. He's a very popular character in the comics. He even got his own video game. He also got some time on the big screen as the main character in the Spider-Verse. So, come on. I mean, in Spider-Man Homecoming, Miles Morales was actually teased during the interrogation scene with Donald Glover. But we haven't heard anything since. And I think it's very possible that after Spider-Man 3, Miles Morales gets established and eventually becomes a main character in the MCU. Speaking of Spider-Man, what about Ben Reilly? How many of you are familiar with the Clone Saga? It's a famous story arc from the Spider-Man comics. It's been reinterpreted a few times, so without spoiling too much for you, Ben Reilly is a clone of Peter Parker who was created by Miles Warren and then tasked with killing Spidey, but he eventually becomes an ally. So that's the short version. Things got crazy during the original story, and things got really crazy during the Ultimate Spider-Man version of the Clone Arc. But my point is, Ben Reilly would be awesome. He's essentially a second Spider-Man with a much more twisted past, and he even took over for Peter a couple times in the comics after he stepped down. I would love to see a Spider-Man clone saga in the MCU. I think that would be cool. At number 6, X-23. If you saw Logan a few years back, you probably want this one to happen as well. In the movie, Logan, and X-23, also known as Laura, was a clone of Wolverine created by the evil corporation trying to wipe out mutant kind and control the remaining population as weapons. Now, Logan was tasked with escorting the young girl out of the country to safety, and he ended up giving his life for her along the way. Spoiler alert. X-23 was a huge part of Logan, and a lot of fans have been waiting patiently to see if her story will be continued. Personally, I think it would be amazing if Laura comes back in the MCU and gets to fight alongside the Avengers, keeping Wolverine's legacy alive. Plus, Daphne Keane gave an incredible performance as X-23. Give her another shot. At number 5, Luke Cage. Hit or miss show, I know. A lot of people loved it, a lot of people didn't like it. Compared to the other Netflix Marvel shows, it flew under the radar, but it did have good moments, and I think it's worth another try in the MCU. Mike Coulter gave it his all, and this could also bring in Jessica Jones back in the mix, even if it's just for a cameo. I know a lot of people like her. Luke Cage could give us some awesome fight scenes in the future now that the MCU is more established and the budgets are bigger than they were in 2016. I think it could happen. At number 4, Deadpool. Now, this one's happening. We know that, right? Let's talk about it. It's always been one of the Marvel's main standouts, but he has yet to share the screen with a major MCU character, despite referencing them many times in his own movies and making fun of them. Well, he was with Korg in the Breakdown trailer, but that's not the same. Ryan Reynolds is going to continue playing the character for years. He already made his MCU debut in that YouTube video, so it's coming. But what major story piece will it be for the MCU? Will it be a standalone comedy, or will it actually intertwine with everything that's going on? Will he join the Avengers? I don't know. I can't wait. I mean, the roof is going to blow off the top when Deadpool 3 comes out. At number 3, the Fantastic Four. Pretty much confirmed. Well, it is confirmed, but I'm excited to see it on the big screen. We just don't know when it's coming. They're fan favorites in the comics and cartoons. They got some really bad luck in Hollywood. A couple of movies in the mid-2000s, okay, and then we had the atrocious 2015 reboot, but Marvel and Disney have confirmed they are bringing them back in the MCU. Now, if I was a betting man, sometimes I am, I would put money down on the Fantastic Four being in the next Avengers movie. They're too popular to leave out of the fray. Now, it remains to be seen how they'll be treated or if they'll be treated with respect this time, but I'm pretty confident Marvel's going to do them right. At number 2, Blade. This has already been confirmed by Kevin Feige, and Blade was one of the most underrated characters of the early 2000s. He was played by Wesley Snipes in the trilogy. I know a lot of people didn't like him, but I thought they were super fun. Lots of rumors floating about how Blade is going to be reintroduced in the MCU. We know it's happening, but they actually haven't talked about it much since they announced it back in 2019, so we'll have to see. And at number 1, probably everybody's most anticipated return, Wolverine. I know Hugh Jackman already said he isn't coming back for the character, but what if he made a cameo? The fans would go nuts, perhaps as Old Man Logan. Wolverine is one of the most iconic characters in all of Marvel's lineup, and while I do not want someone else to take over for Hugh, I do want to see the character come into the MCU one way or another. Hugh played the character so perfect. Hugh Jackman was Wolverine, so it would be impossible to replace him. That doesn't mean he can't show up somehow. We know the X-Men are coming to the MCU. We know a lot of them are going to get recast, but it remains to be seen if Wolverine will be one of them. A lot of the fans are nervous about how it'll be handled, especially after Hugh Jackman gave such a perfect exit a few years ago. But I have faith that Marvel can get it done. And there you have it. Those are 15 new characters, new Avengers that we want to see in the MCU. Add one on the list, and I'll see you soon.